Welcome to the Diary of Discovery, the podcast where we delve deep into the human experience of healing and transformation. I'm your host, Jacky, and each week we will sit down with inspiring individuals who have embarked on their own personal journeys of healing and self-discovery. From overcoming trauma to navigating life's challenges, our guests share their raw and honest stories, offering insights, wisdom, and hope to all who tune in. So grab your favorite cup of tea, find a cozy spot, and join us as we uncover the power of resilience, courage, and the pursuit of authenticity. This is the Diary of Discovery. Okay, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm super excited to welcome yet another wonderful guest on the podcast. So, do you want to tell everyone who you are and where you are in the world?
Yes, thank you, Jacky. I'm Nyx. I go by the Breathwork goddess, and I am in the northeast of Scotland.
Amazing. I love Scotland. Scotland is one of my favorite places. So I always love chatting to people who live up there. It's so beautiful. So let's get into what we're here for today. And we're going to be talking about your own personal healing journey. So let's start with the start of your journey. So when did you realize that something had to change? What happened? If you take us back to, whatever timestamp you want, yeah, fill us in.
Mhm. So yeah, there's been a few pivotal moments, but the first real big one was in 2007. I was going through my first divorce and I didn't have any emotional tools or know how to emotionally regulate. I've since recognized codependency and that kind of thing in the relationship. So that ultimately led me to a suicide attempt in 2007. So interestingly, I look back on it now with gratitude because it really helped me get to that point of how did I get here? And I looked heavenward and I remember saying, help me, I'm in despair. And I kind of got helped. And it was like a very spiritual awakening for me of I asked whoever, I didn't know who I was talking to at the time, for help and help came and it blew me away that that happened. So that was the first moment in my life where I thought, how on earth did I get here? So I started looking at things like psychology, understanding the individual. How did that happen for me? How did I get to that point? And from then on, it's been a process. There have been other pivotal moments. There was a second divorce as well came in the mix, and so all these moments are kind of. But that was the first one. Going back to 2007 really was the biggest moment of my life. Of something has to change.
Oh my gosh. I mean, firstly, like just everything in me just wants to tell you that I'm so glad that you're still here. Like,
Thank
oh
you.
my gosh, yeah, it's such a huge thing, and I think not enough people talk about it and talk about, how hard it can be going through these big things and how people can feel so alone in those moments. And I think it's so, so important for people to be able to share these stories and just thank you. Like, thank you so much for, just starting there. I think this is, what a place to start. I think that that is amazing. So I know obviously, as you said, there's been a couple of pivotal moments, and I'm sure we'll get to the unfolding of the story as we go. But in that first moment back in 2007, what what did you have to understand about yourself in order to actually start that journey? Because I know you said like you started looking into psychology, like understanding yourself more, but actually something must have clicked in order for you to start that journey. That's not a journey that's easy to start by itself. So what was it for you that you had to like really kind of understand or embrace about yourself to go on that journey?
First thing that really came up was low self-worth. Looking at my own worth and wondering, wow, I don't actually really like myself or value myself or something in that moment. And then realizing I'm a people pleaser. So it was very much kind of, I actually found a life coach a few years down the line because interestingly, when I look back at my experience, I didn't get put forward for counseling or coaching or anything in the system. And I was taken to the system because I had to get taken to hospital. Um, so I was recognized as a suicide attempt, but it didn't, nothing happened. So I then realized I had to ask for help, which has still been a work in progress. I had to seek answers on my own, um, because there wasn't that help. And within my surrounding people, let's say, including family, they don't know how to deal with this kind of thing. And making peace with that's been challenging because I wanted them to see me, I guess, and also understand what happened, but it never got talked about. And it's still in the closet, interestingly, in my family dynamic. My mum hates me talking about it. Um, that brings up her stuff, and it's stuff I've kind of made a lot of peace with as well. But it was, right, okay, I need to work out why have I got low self-worth? What does that even mean?
Absolutely. It's such a driving force for depression, for suicide attempts, like that link of self-worth and what we feel we are deserving of. So many podcast guests have spoken about this, when it comes to abuse in a multitude of different ways, whether you're letting people abuse you or whether you are abusing yourself, however you're doing it. Like self-worth, people don't really, I think, recognize how important it is to foster and care for a level of self-worth. And I can completely recognize in myself, like in my own journey, that that was a massive force for me as well, putting other people before me, not feeling like I was worth the same as other people. Like all of that was a massive driving force. And I think it's really interesting that you said, like, that suicide attempt is still in the closet, like within your family. And it's like, that's so common as well.
Mhm.
Like, if anybody is listening and you're in the same situation, like, it's so normal and it's so common because exactly like you said, like, it brings up something in the other person. So if you're saying, well, I had a bad childhood, the parent is instantly defensive of, well, I wasn't, I wasn't a bad parent. And it's like, actually, we're not necessarily saying you were a bad parent, or, we're not trying to make it about the other person. Sometimes it's just our experience and, what is happening. But I found like when I was going through my depression, it was very linked to a lot of situations that had happened to the whole family. So like mine was a very fun, like very, very fueled by grief. We had a lot of grief in our family in a very short space of time. And I found myself like detaching even further away, feeling like I wasn't worthy of that help and that support because everyone else was more worthy. And actually,
Mhm.
like, I need to be strong for everybody else. And like, again, that like that self-worth can be such a detrimental factor. But for me, like everyone was trying to deal with the thing as well. So it was like this really weird dynamic. And I think for a lot of people, you have to kind of realize and recognize that your healing will trigger things in other people, like you going through, and whether it is generational, whether it is trauma, like a trauma specific, like there will be an impact of how other people like look at your healing journey.
Definitely. And it like everyone like it's a conversation I've had with my mum now, actually. We've opened it up around because I speak a lot in my social media around trauma with the work I do with breathwork. And interestingly, I think I put a quote up and it wasn't my quote, but it was something like it ran in the family until it ran into me. And it really triggered my mum. And we had actually quite a lovely conversation because with the tools I have now, to not take it personal, to not get triggered, and to know that she's doing the best she can and always has, we were able to have a conversation when I was explaining to her about generational stuff. And my lineage is German. My mum's mum is German. So, there's a lot of masculine stuff, a lot of trauma there. And I was trying to say to my mum, I'm not saying I had a bad childhood, mum, but I had stuff. As you had stuff and Nanny had stuff. We all have our stuff. And it's really how we kind of deal with that. And it was nice. It opened up a lovely conversation now as adults. So back in 2007, that would have never been a conversation. But now, with how I know how to regulate and hold space, I'm able to hold her in that space and understand that she's just asking questions from a lack of understanding because I've done a lot of work and she hasn't. And I'm not comparing. She's just, that's her life and that's her path. And, it's kind of that accepting of, okay, well, that's where that is and this is where I am. So it's been a bit of a journey.
Mm. Oh, absolutely. I think as well, like generationally specifically, it wasn't deemed like acceptable to talk about your mental health or, go on this journey. So actually looking at the older generations and expecting them to be as emotionally intelligent around their healing and around their trauma, it's
Mm.
kind of a little bit unfair as well. Like there is a level of having to accept that people are where they are, and you can come to that conversation, however you can and whatever with whatever capacity you have. But I do see that a lot still, in my own family, in my friend, like in my friend group, like there is definitely a disconnect between the generations and how open they are to actually having these conversations and being accepting of, hard things happening, or, whatever it is. And I guess like, so obviously 2007 was like a massive pivotal point. Obviously that was a moment where you absolutely felt like you couldn't make it, and you did, which is amazing. So were there any other sort of critical moments on that journey where you just felt like it was too hard? And, maybe not to a suicide attempt, but, just actually it's a hard journey.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I ended up divorcing a second time. And I ended up in the same questioning of how did I get here? However, noticing the difference in the resilience and the strength and the tools I had in that situation. So it wasn't as devastating as it felt the first time. Still lots of hard stuff within that situation. And I'd been working with a life coach a few years before the divorce. So interestingly, when I went to see her, and it wasn't for me, it was for, I had a business. I was a barber for 30 years and I had a shop and then a second shop, and I found some stuff going on with work. So I wanted her to help me do positivity workshops for my staff. And it ended up being about me in the first session. And it was very interesting because I think on session one, she said to me, I will be able to teach you assertive skills, boundaries, how to be okay with being angry, how to bring stuff up. And I remember thinking, what? You can teach these things? Like, what? And I was hooked from then on. And I saw her for a few years. And incidentally, that's probably what ended the marriage in a way, because I grew and changed, my values changed. But also in the latter part of that marriage, I also went through IVF. So I had 3 failed attempts. That was really, really challenging. And that took a lot on a situation that was already challenged, maybe. So that, ending that marriage, saying goodbye to my beloved dogs within that marriage, because I had 2 dogs I adored, and being as I was going into rented accommodation, I had to say goodbye to them. So a big loss and a lot of grief came with that. And then I took to my local hill, which is called Benahee. I decided to find myself in that cliched way of like, what's going on? How have I ended up here again? In a different way, but a big life change. So I started hiking every single day, and I did that for 5 years every morning, and went up the same hill, different routes and different paths and things. But that was a really pivotal point for me. I started really devouring self-help books and looking for things and answers. And then I started to take out the earphones and embrace nature and really understand, okay, nature became a big part of my life, of the grounding, the connectedness, the getting out of my head. And that's been my main learning of everything. If I encompass it, it's getting out of my head and into my body and really understanding that, because I feel that I lived not really landed in my own life. I was just an observer. And it's now I've kind of that process of going into nature and hiking in all weathers. And it was at 5 in the morning, it was sometimes pitch dark. It just was that, it was almost like a mini pilgrimage every day to really get into that space of, right, something has to change. And that's when the shift from barbering went into wellness, and something came and had to change around that sort of space. And that's kind of the main point that that changed.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I mean, like, yeah, divorce in itself is a massive, like, it's a massive change. It's a massive thing. But to have that come off the back of IVF as well, it's such a, yeah, it's such a I don't know, like, just it's such a challenge, isn't it? Coming to an acceptance of what life will be.
It is, and it's something I find in these moments that I've landed a bit more in my body, it's coming up for healing because it's an invasive
Mm,
process that no one can prepare you for at all. And
mm.
going straight into divorce off the back of it, I didn't get time to really process it, and I never have. And it's now coming up, and it pops up in random times. I was having a massage a few weeks ago, and tears just sprouted from me as she was kind of going around the back space, round about my abdomen area and the womb space, and I thought, oh, okay, this is coming up for some, and it's grief and it's loss as well, and it's processing. So. Yeah, that was another big another big pivotal moment. There's been a few.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like, it's so easy to have these big things happen and to not process them in the moment, and to sort of come back to them after the fact, whether consciously or unconsciously, sort of come back to them. But it's interesting that actually through all of that, there was this, like, this pilgrimage, this grounding, this almost like getting yourself back to a place where you could bring that stuff back up and you could actually start dealing with it. Because when your nervous system is so fried that actually it isn't able to process anything, it is most likely just going to put it in a box and shut it away and say, actually, we're not going to deal with that because that's going to be too big and too hard. So it is interesting that actually you were doing all of the things that you had to do anyway to get to this point. And, like, now you can start sort of processing through some of that, and sort of dealing with that. I think that that is really, really lovely as well. And so you said that, like, you had quite a big shift in that thing of, like, getting out of your head and getting into your body. What do you think the biggest change on your outlook to life was as you were going through this process?
hmm It was really because anxiety was pinpointed when I went to see my life coach. She recognized I had anxiety and my nervous system was fried, and it's something I had no idea of. So in that space of it was trust, I think. Trusting the process rather than resisting. I don't want to be here right now. I wish I was here, over there, or fixed. I remember when I went to see my life coach, I had this notion in my head that she would fix me. And when she said, you're not broken, number one. Number two, you're never fixed. It's a journey, it's a process. You change, you evolve, you grow, and there's not an end goal in this. And that really blew my mind. I thought, oh, I thought I was broken and I needed to be fixed. And it was like that realization helped me realize that, oh, okay, this is maybe not such a good day today, and that's okay in that acceptance of because tomorrow can be a different day and a different outlook and a different mindset. It's kind of the mindset's really important around, how we attach story or how we go into old story and the computer files in our brain go and look for evidence to try and make that, oh, this is what we look for. And it's recognizing that the old familiar path, as much as it feels comfortable, isn't the way to go because it's not helping anymore, and it's that path of, okay, that did help. So the ego, the brain wants to make it keep working, but it's that parts that no longer work and go, how do I create new neural pathways and find new ways to go? And some days that's okay just to sit in a comfort zone, but some days we can't sit there all the time. And it's that place of, okay, I've been here too long. Because another big thing for us was I ended up I was engaged a third time, and just last year we sold our house, we bought a motorhome, we decided to go for van life and come out of the system somewhat. And that ended as well. The fiance, it didn't work out. We broke off the relationship. We sold the van, and in that process of letting go, it's been an unraveling of accepting and surrendering hugely into that process of, okay, well, this is not what I expected, but expectations can be struggle, because we have these expectations that are unmet rather than going with the moment and being in the now and just trusting the process that we're in that place, in that space, and right, this is meant to be where I am because it's where I am.
Oh, absolutely. I think the saying that comparison is the thief of joy
Mm.
is one that has literally always stuck with me. And it's that exactly what you're saying, like comparing yourself to where you think you should be, or where other people are, or to what other people have. And it's in so many ways. And I think like I don't know for you, but like I can look back and I can see such clear patterns of when I used to compare my life to other people's. And like going back to as young as like being a kid, being
Mm.
in primary school, like I can remember distinct moments where I would massively compare myself to other people. And I think it is that worth seeking.
Mhm.
Like actually, if we're the same as others, if we have the same as others, then we must be worthy as them. Like it was a massive worth seeking, I know for me, um, in that kind of process. And I think it's a really interesting shift when you start to come away from, like, it doesn't matter what other people have or what other people don't have, or how people recognize you, or like when you can come away from all of that and it is literally just I am where I am and I'm doing what I'm doing, and it just
Mm.
is. Like
Yeah.
it's not good, it's not bad, it just is.
Yeah, when I had my barbering business, I think I was self-employed at 19, and then I owned my first business at 21, and I have felt that this would give me the validation, because I'd be successful, I'd be a businesswoman, and I then decided to spend money. So I made the money, but spent it just as quickly. And I had a fancy car and the fancy clothes, and I went down the whole materialism route and look at me, look how well I'm doing. Even though there's no money in the bank, I've spent it all, but look what I have. And that was really interesting to go through that process. In fact, the van life and selling the home was getting rid of all the material, all the objects, all the physical. And the physical came attached with emotional because everything I bought came from a place or a person or something. So that letting go was a big, big, real unraveling of wow. I mean, in my belief, I think the system is a bit broken. Um, from schooling, it didn't serve me that well. To be fair, it didn't work for me. I didn't fit in. And that fitting in that we try and do, the comparison, as you say, is a thief of joy. And social media, there's so much comparison on there. And I'm in my own. I was gonna say it's a love-hate relationship with social media, but I'll be honest, it's more hate at the minute. I'm kind of in that space of I'm kind of done with this. And it's in that, like you say, the comparison and the fitting in and the feeling we have to be a certain way and not trusting our inner knowing of who are we and what do we actually want within that space of systems and societies and people and all that things.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I can completely like get exactly what you're saying. I have the same, like, I just want to not be plugged in. I just want to not be on social media. I just want to not be, in that place of comparison. And I massively did the same thing, climbed the corporate ladder, bought all of the things, looked like I was super successful, had no money in the bank, like did all of the things that is it like they're like expected, aren't they? They're like expected of you. And
They're
I think
revered
that,
almost by people, that people think, like, people used to say to me all the time, you must be so successful and you must be so well off and so rich because you own a business. And I'm like, if only you knew the truth.
oh, absolutely. And the thing is, I think as well, like in all of this, like from the school system, to like the joys of, people starting works and careers and staying in careers for, really long times. Like there is so much attached to what success means. And I think that is slowly starting to change because the younger generation doesn't seem so attached to these old stereotypes of success. I think a lot of them are not about the white picket fence houses. Like a lot of them are about backpacks and just going and seeing the world, which I think is really amazing. But I do think that for a lot of people of an older generation, of people who are not in school now and not in uni now, like not that kind of like younger, like adult generation, I do think that a lot of people weren't served well by the school system, really struggle to find their place. Like it's a story that I hear over and over again. And I think it's because so many people were disconnected from their purpose, like disconnected from what they should have been doing, like how they should have been showing up in the world. The world almost like wasn't ready for the the beings that were arriving. So I think that it's always really interesting to like look at that journey of like, so you went from being a barber for 30 years, and then you come across into your wellness space. Like how did that journey actually happen?
Um, Actually, so in 2020, I was still barbering, and I used to say I'd give it up if I could because my body started to ache a bit, and but I need the money, so I can't afford to. And then in January 2020, me and a friend we'd gone to a coffee shop, and I decided to start taking people out on walks to this hill because I've been doing it for about 5 years at this point. So I knew every corner of this hill and every secret walk and everything. And I used to take people out. And I think I charged them £10 to take them on a walk and just like listen to them, sort of thing. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. Because I did train as a life coach actually as well in that year because I got so much from life coaching. So that was done online. And then I started, so we came up with this name, Wild Wellness. My friend was like, Wild Wellness, you love being outside, you love being barefoot in nature. Why don't you take people into that space and help them, get grounded and stuff? So I set up a Facebook page, called it Wild Wellness. And then, was it March? Lockdown hit the world. And I was forced to close my barbering doors for quite a few months. And also, Wild Wellness had to go to the side. And my body loved the fact that I wasn't cutting hair anymore. And I thought, I can't go back. I cannot go back. So I decided to retire from barbering. A big, scary decision. My partner, my fiance at the time, was in the oil industry, so comfortably enough financially that I thought, right, I can do this. I've got my life coaching qualification now as well, so this will help me make the shift. So I think I went back to work in the August and then was done and dusted by the September, pretty much. So barbering was retired, and the new wellness industry, the business started, the wild wellness business started. And it evolved from taking people out into nature to I trained in cold water immersion. So I started doing cold water workshops for people. And then it was more, and then I realized that breath work was underneath all of those things. I used to get people breathing and walking when we did the walking, and then the breath work's really important for the cold immersion before and after. And then I came across trauma release breath work, and that just opened up a whole thing for me. It was just it blew my mind. It knocked my socks off in a way that I was like, what was that? It was really deep breathing. And I remember doing the session on my own in my bell tent when I still had the house. And I was crying, I was screaming, I was laughing, I felt joy. It was a whole journey. And at the end of it, I just thought, what even was that? And I got my partner at the time to do it as well. And he was the same. He went, what was that? So that was me niching more towards breath work after that. And I thought, wow, this is powerful. And in the last few months, it's been trauma release I've worked on for a few years, and it's powerful, and it never ceases to amaze me how much transformation people get from this. But I recognized in myself from the transition to the motorhome life, it was quite stressful, and I had to get back in my comfort zone a bit to cope with all these changes. So I then started training in down regulation breath work, functional breath work, how can I regulate the nervous system as well as the trauma release stuff. So now I've got this whole kind of journey of breath work that I work on, from functional to calming to activating to trauma release. So I'm now trying to find a new way to work that forward into everything. I can't do the cold immersions just now because I don't have the space to do it anymore, because obviously we went into van life and I'm now kind of just living in other people's spaces for now. But yeah, it's been a progression of adding different tools and trying to find my place. And I work a lot with cacao as a plant medicine to open my heart, and I like to do a lot with that. And I want to open up more space again to add more in to the breath work. So what I'm finding is people love the breathwork experience, but they seem to want more time either side. So maybe more sharing or more nature connection or more experiences or something. So I'm trying to listen. What do people want, but what do I want as well within that space? So that's been a progressive journey from say 2020 to, and the good thing is I've got the life coaching qualification, so that kind of underpins everything. So I can hold that space with that knowledge and with that training that I've got with that as well. So it's kind of, as I'm speaking out loud, I'm thinking, yeah, I've got a lot to offer.
You do. You absolutely do. I
Hmm.
love that so much. I think that it's so incredible when you're leading from a place of purpose in a business and you're leading from your own experience, you do evolve. And sometimes that can make running a business a bit more challenging because it is forever changing and you're forever trying to have to refigure out the message and, how it all fits together. But at the same time, I think that if we let it, it can be really empowering as well. Like there's so much knowledge and like passion that you can bring in your own story and how you show up in actually like you fully believe what you're teaching. And I think that that makes a massive difference. It's not like, oh yeah, I've learned this three-step model and now I'm just going to teach it to people and rinse and repeat for a decade. Like it's actually, oh, actually I learned this and then I realized I needed this and then I needed that and then we're adding this in. And I think that's such an incredible way to show up and do the work as you're going through the process. So you definitely do have a lot to offer the world. I think that that is a key. I think everyone knows it. Um, and I guess let's get into advice then. So, what advice would you give somebody who is going through a challenging time at the moment? And you could do this from whatever angle you want. Somebody who is, at that really critical, suicide point, somebody who's going through divorce, somebody who's going through, anxiety. You pick, you can do all three of them, however you want to do it. But what advice would you give to somebody who's going through a healing journey of their own?
The main thing I think is, I mean, the first thing is always breathe, but that's not always easy to remember to stop and breathe because it gives you that pause. It's like hitting that imaginary pause button in the sky, which gives you that, it gives you that, I think it's about 7 seconds we have between reaction or responding. And it's like if you use those few seconds to just calm the nervous system and respond, but that for me has been a work in progress. So I know that's not always the beginning point, but it's recognizing that it's not all light and daisies, this awakening journey. You're not running through fields of daisies in a white dress, and it's like there are shadows will come up. There are parts of ourselves, and it's what's coming up for me more than ever just now is in that accepting those parts of me that I have kind of discarded, thinking that they needed to go away, they needed to not be part of my life, the anxiety, the fear of disapproval, those parts that show up still. I used to try and fix them, and now I recognize that it's accepting them and saying, thank you for your help. And in those moments when we're a bit overwhelmed, it's just a case of I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can, as is everybody in this world. We're always doing the best we can. And it's self compassion in that space because it's the stories. I don't know if you've ever come across a lady called Byron Katie. She works and her process is basically it's not the problem that causes us the stress, it's the thinking about the problem that causes us the stress. So it's a case of what I have now is I have a little mantra that I say, I'm loved even when I'm not being shown love. I'm loved even when I'm not being shown love. My safety lies inside me. because it's safety. That was a big path for me. I didn't always feel safe. And it took me a long time to sort of get into that safety feeling. And it's that recognizing that I am exactly where I'm meant to be right now. Even if that's standing on a bridge or, thinking of taking something or, you thinking of leaving a marriage or something like that. It's like, it's feel the fear and do it anyway kind of thing. I know that sounds a bit of a cliche, but we keep ourselves stuck in that space. And it's like, what do we want? What are we doing for us? Not everybody else, us. And that's like the most important thing that I've been learning is don't try and keep mum happy. Don't try and keep partner happy. Don't think for other people. Get inside yourself, go into your body and think, what's real for me right now?
I love that. What's real for me right now? That is a
Mm.
massively important question. I think a lot of people really they do expect that healing's meant to make you feel good, not realizing that actually sometimes getting to the point of feeling good is gonna feel bad.
Yep.
Like it is part of that journey, isn't it? And I, I've spoken before on the podcast about like my first experience of healing and literally feeling like I had a hole in the middle of my body. And it was like such a traumatic, like not knowing how to deal with it or how to hold any of that. Like I had no tools at all. And it just felt so impossible. And I remember also working with a coach and, I mean, we did oh gosh, what's it called? Somatic work. So we did actual somatic work. And it was so interesting going through that and experiencing almost like how detached I was and how difficult it was for me. And I always say, like, if I didn't have somebody in that process to actually help me get over that like first hurdle, I probably never would have been able to do it
Hmm.
because it was so challenging when I'd shut my feelings down for so long and I'd lived in that space of repression for so long to then suddenly be like, oh yeah, now I just need to feel everything. And apparently that's going to make me feel better, which obviously it did in the end. But at the time, like it did not. It did not feel better. Absolutely. And like it was so strange. Like the the process of going through, like I remember literally being in somatic work and feeling like I had to like step off a cliff, like literally, it literally felt like my body had to step off a cliff, and
Hmm.
below was just completely dark, and I had no idea what was going to be down there. And like that's literally like the feeling of what it felt like to go through. It didn't feel nice, it didn't feel comfortable, like it felt horrific. But actually, as soon as I landed, as soon as I like went through that barrier, it felt so good. It was
Hmm.
literally like I was the light that needed to be down there, and it felt absolutely fine. And it was like this beautiful moment. But I don't think I ever would have stepped off the edge by myself. Like, I don't think I ever would have been able to push myself through that barrier
Hmm.
because it didn't feel good. Like, it didn't feel nice.
I think that's one of the things in society that there's a lot of divide and separation. And, if you go back many cultures ago, we lived in tribes and communities, and there seems to be a calling for that. The more people I spoke to when I said I was embracing van life, maybe looking for a community, the amount of people that went, oh, that's my dream, living in community or having more help around us. It takes a tribe to raise a child, they say. Yet now everyone does it on their own. Everyone's separated from their families. They do everything on their own, and it's like we need help. We need people to help us with everything from a coach of some kind. My life coach, she changed my life, absolutely changed my life. And I realized the somatic work needed to come in as well as the talking therapy, but it was also a case of these people that have been throughout my life, and I've had coaches in different levels of business. I've had like coaches in my life, and I've realized the value of investing in that. So if I can, I will, or getting some kind of help, because trying to do it on your own takes a lot longer, and you may still get there, but it takes a lot longer. So it's really kind of reaching out for help, whether that's a friend or, a family member or a coach if you can afford to kind of hire someone to help you. It's kind of finding where that space is of like reach out, have connection, don't do it on your own.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like that whole community, I think that it is exactly where the world is going at the moment. People wanting to find spaces where they feel connected. And for everyone that looks different. Like, not everybody wants to, do van life, or in my case, not everyone wants to join a running community and go run. Everyone has their thing that they want to do, but I think it is finding like-minded people, finding
Mm,
that connection, having a wider network of support outside of just the kind of core.
mm,
Um, it's something that I realized a lot actually when because we obviously born in South Africa, lived in the UK for quite a while, and then we came back to South Africa. It was something that was really interesting for me because when I was in the UK, I really struggled to make friends because
mm,
everyone just had gone through school and had their friend group, or worked somewhere and had their friend group. Like it was very much like everyone had a friend group, and
mm.
it's very hard to then like just slot yourself into somebody else's friend group, like as you kind of go through that process. I think it was so interesting then moving back to South Africa and moving back into my original friend group from school and being like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, like this is really interesting. Like I just slotted back in like nothing had changed, like I'd never been away. Like it was a
Wow.
really, really interesting concept. But then actually sitting back and being like, but do I actually need more than just this friend group? Like, do I actually need more community? And I've actually gone out and actively built a new community around me in that same thought process of like, I absolutely love the girls I went to school with. Like they're an incredible group of women, but it's hard for one group to serve all of the purposes that you need them to. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people try and put all of that pressure on one group, or, whether it's a family unit or a friend unit, or, whatever unit you're using. A lot of people put a lot of pressure on a single unit. So I think
Right.
community is super important as you go through this process. Okay, so final question for you then, and this is I think my favorite question of all of the podcast questions, and that is the next level of healing for you. So obviously you've said to us life has changed a lot recently for you. Um, and the business is sort of reshaping as well at the moment. So what is the next level of healing that you're going through?
Yes. Resting, slowing down, and listening inward, to less thinking, more feeling. That's a new phrase. It's not my phrase, but it's something that's landed with me. And I'm like, yes, I've got to stop myself, breathe, obviously, and then go, that's just a thought. That's a thinking. This is a process, and really trying to get into that acceptance in that place of this is where I'm supposed to be right now. And also the breathwork stuff. I'm looking at doing maybe smaller guided programs, little bite-sized chunks that I can kind of put out there for helping with things like COPD, asthma, stress, anxiety, and stuff, as well as the bigger workshops and things as well. So kind of looking into that space, but that's more work-based. My own stuff is really just, don't get too caught up in the work stuff. Really just think of what's for me and what do I need, what stillness do I need, what nature connection do I need, and be still and allow the stillness, because we're very overstimulated in the world right now, and it's really easy just to pick up our phone or look at something else rather than just be in that boredom or that stillness or that frustration and just go, this is a message, this is a lesson, there's something in this for me. And trying really hard to get away from that constant thinking, more feeling.
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. There's a hilariously, there's a thing on social media at the moment which talks about this boredom theory. And it's something that feels really uncomfortable to me. Really uncomfortable. You literally watch people and they pop on a timer for 30 minutes and then just sit and do nothing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a really, really interesting concept, because I think like for me, I think that's my next level of healing as well. Like I absolutely love the whole rest and recovery, but I do very active rest. Like my wrist is always doing something. And
Mhm.
just hearing you say, like, actually just the slowing down and, less thinking, more feeling, like it properly made me be like, oh, that's it, isn't it? Oh, here we go. So maybe we'll be doing this together.
Yes, definitely.
I feel like this is the thing. Yeah, absolutely. It's I completely agree though that we are massively overstimulated in the world at the moment, and being able to unplug or not use your phone as often, or just get back to actually being bored. I genuinely can't remember the last time that I was bored,
Mhm.
and I think that that's actually really bad for us. Like I think we should be bored more often.
Yeah.
I think it's quite healthy. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that
Unusual.
that's going to
We're
be.
not used to it, but yeah, once we kind of embrace it, it's like, okay, I'm bored, and that's okay to be bored. I started painting the other day. I found some acrylic paints on a pad, and I don't paint really, but I just picked them up and started just making patterns on the paper and thought, that looks terrible, but it felt good to do. It wasn't very artistic, but I was like, "But what does creativity mean?" I always used to believe creativity meant you had to be a really good artist or a really good some singer or some dancer or something. It's like it's nothing to do with that. Creativity is just, even if it's just walking in nature in bare feet, which is something I do actually like to do. So, mm,
Absolutely. I think creativity is expression, isn't it? It's nothing to do with the result. If you can just be in the expression and not worry about the result, you can actually be truly creative. I think when you start worrying about the result, you're no longer creative.
yes, yes, yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, it's been such an honor talking to you and going through this process and having you share your story. Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast and yeah, coming and sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great talking about it.
Thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of the Diary of Discovery. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends, family, or anyone else you think might benefit from the stories of hope and transformation. Your feedback means the absolute world to us, so please take a moment to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help us to reach even more listeners and continue to bring this meaningful content to the world. Until next time, remember, your healing journey is valid. You are never alone, and you have the strength to get through this. Keep shining bright, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Diary of Discovery.